Welcome to the Captain Jamtastic podcast. That sweet, sweet music you heard with silent partner singing the wrong time, or playing it, I should say. There's no words. With me, my good friend, not the soccer
It's
player,
Messi.
not the soccer player, but the tag pro player, Lionel Messi.
Hello, everybody.
I didn't want to mislead my seven subscribers into thinking I had the coup of the century. How are you,
Well, if you
man?
did, you might end up with more than 7 after that.
Oh yeah, I think there would be a pretty hard drop off after the first week. Be like, this guy doesn't know soccer at all, or football, I guess. So we're here and we're going to talk all about Ranked Thugs, the team you've created this season.
My brainchild,
Yeah,
one might say.
yeah. Well, your nickname is the Architect for good reason, my friend. So first and foremost, I had a different question listed, so I'm going to catch you off guard with this one. Just kidding, I'm not, because I love him. How is Grumpy so good?
Well, I love Grumpy, I should say. Grumpy's a great guy. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't know who he was, including the other 3 players on my team when I drafted him.
Oh, really?
But yeah, when we were thinking about who we were gonna pick up at the end, and there were a few names on the table, and I was like, "What about Grumpy?" And then none of them knew who Grumpy was. I was like, I think he's pretty good, and you guys are gonna play with him."
Man, you remember that time when Grumpy was sitting at home listening to the podcast and you accidentally dropped a diss track on him?
I remember.
Oh.
I did,
But I've been touting Grumpy for like several seasons. I played alongside him. I say this all the time, but like we won a Nooper together, and then I saw him in minors, and I was immediately people criticized him then too. He's just got that like until you've proven yourself aura. He was a criticized pick when Fender picked him up in minors 2 seasons. No, yeah, 2 seasons ago, and then I think last season he even got called up, if I'm not mistaken. I think he did to whichever team Doris was on.
yeah, I
Right?
think that wouldn't that have been? I think it was Kuda Cap is who he was
That's
on
what it
last
was. Yeah,
season.
coup de cap. Yeah. So Grumpy's great, and he's been playing really well this season. So if people didn't know him before, they certainly seem to know him now.
Yeah, like my biggest concern when I drafted him was like I hadn't talked to him too much, and from my limited experience with him, he was for the most part quiet.
Mm,
And we had like Oppo and OK then on the team, and I was like, I don't know how that's going to work out. I feel like he might get overrun with personality there, but it ended up it's working real well. He's fitting in, and I think we're all having fun, and I think that's the best part that's been keeping us going.
yeah, and you talk about it in sports, actual sports all the time, like the locker room guy, good glue guy type thing. Grumpy's definitely that type of guy. He rolls with the punches. He pulls the one-liners out of nowhere every once in a while. He's super fun. Big fan. That wasn't even
Yeah,
one of
I've
my
got
10
a
questions. I just wanted to put him over.
I've got a good story about one of Grumpy's one-liners. I think it was the first week this season. We're playing on haste. I think it was against Ball or Nothing, and like just he's quiet for most of the game. Like he gives out comms, he'll call out power ups and stuff, but for the
Yeah.
most part, he's pretty quiet. And then with like 30 seconds left, well, I don't remember. We were up by enough that we were gonna win. And so with 30 seconds left, he just out of nowhere when it's quiet, hey, this is winnable. I really lost it. I wish I could have recorded it because it was the best things I've ever heard from someone. It was just so out of the blue, and oh, it was real good.
Yeah.
That was a fun week. Every week's been fun.
Yeah, he's awesome. So that brings up a question I didn't have, but so you listen to the comms every game? Are you at every game?
Yeah, I've listened to the comms every game. There was one week where I was sick with like a stomach issue, so I was just kind of laying in bed watching it on a stream. So I didn't get comms that week, but every other week, yeah, I've been sitting in the channel with them, just listening in on them as they're playing.
Yeah. Were you surprised at this team that you were able to draft everybody? It seems like kind of coming into the season, you guys were the overwhelming preseason number one.
Yeah, so I think okay then and I when we were draft planning, I think our biggest idea was we were thinking we were going to try to get Ty as long as he didn't go for like too much. I think we ended up getting him for like 65 in the long run, which is better than we thought we'd be able to do
Yeah.
because that still left us 35, well, technically 34. We lost to TC in the whole Goober incident, but that still left us with 34 TC left to like round out our team. So that was we were stoked about that because tied for 65. That was awesome.
Yeah, and then Maru was the prelim pick. So what is this Goober incident? I don't know what that is.
Well, it's funny. So Goober was getting bidded up, and it ended up going slowly from like 70 to 90. It was all like 1 coin increments. So okay, then's like, you know what? Let's just put him up to 99 right now. That way we speed it up so that, or I think we might have just put 100 on him. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was 99. But then everyone else just stopped bidding, and we were left with an O-restricted Goober and Okaven with 1 TC left. So we scrambled for the next 15 or 20 minutes to offload Goober to get as much TC as we could back. So we ended up trading him, I think, for 98 tag coins. So we lost the tag coin, but it ended up being pretty funny. It was terrifying because that was I don't think that team would have been as great as this one is
Yeah,
doing
that's
now.
not. I mean, I don't know. I'm a big fan of Goober's abilities on the Tag Pro thing, and I think he's been a little undercelebrated. So I've been pushing him a lot this season. But it definitely would have given your team a very different identity. It would have been a very offensive powerhouse, similar to like K-poppers, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we might have ended up having to put okay then on defense, and I don't I don't know how that would
Yeah,
have worked, but I
I'm
think
also
that would have been probably better than just 1 TC combined on defense.
yeah, and I think like it's important to know that's a fun question. When you go in to the draft, there is like a draft game plan. And you guys were just, was that a bit of gamesmanship trying to, you were just trying to speed it up, you said, but was it also like, oh, well, let's make them pay a little more?
Well, I think Okada and I decided before the draft we were pretty sure Goober was going to go for at least 110. So putting him to 99 wasn't really that didn't seem like a stretch to us at all. And then just everyone stopped. Just
Were you just like buckets of sweat at that point? Just, this is
pretty
not what I
much,
did.
yeah, yeah, like
So
introduction to captaining and
so
very first player up.
right. Was Ty and Pulpo, were they both part of the game plan going in? Did you get what you wanted, so to speak, and then Grumpy kind of fell into your lap miraculously?
So yeah, we wanted Ty for sure.
Mhm.
We thought Pulpo was going to end up going for more. I think we traded for him, but he was like we traded for him during the draft. I think he initially went for like 7,
Hmm.
but at that time we had our eyes I think on like CC is who we were going to go for at that point. But he ended up going to Hat, so we didn't have tag coins for him. But we didn't want to spend on Pulpo at the time when he got brought up, kind of thing. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pulpo was definitely on our radar, but we wanted to get like another defender before we rounded out our offense was the idea.
Yeah. So I'm not that familiar with the draft this season, clearly. So did Grumpy come before the Pulpo acquisition?
Grumpy was the last player that we picked up, but
Okay.
we ended up getting Pulpo because Megatron was gonna. I think he was gonna trade him to Wayne for like 1 tag coin, and we were like, okay, we'll offer you 2 tag coins for Pulpo, and that ended up just getting bidded up. And I think Wayne only had 7 left, and so we ended up just saying we'll take him for 7 from you, and so we ended up getting Pulpo for 7, and then we still had what was it? I think we still had like 20 tag coins after that to go for defender. But at that point, there wasn't much TC bidding on defenders, so we were able to just kind of put everything onto Grumpy, and we were able to get him pretty much automatically, not in a bidding war at all.
Oh, that's interesting. So you traded with COA twice during the draft then. You gave them Goober.
Yeah, so I don't know if we technically traded uh, to get Pulpo from them because Pulpo was on Megatron's team, but he was going to go to them. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we sort of initiated different
It's
things
like a
with
three-way trade
COA.
almost.
Either way, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, oh yeah, we kind of already talked about that. Okay, so you're kind of like in a more interesting position than most of the people I've talked to because you can be a bit more objective because you're not playing, so you don't. Not that you don't have to say our team's the best, but you're able to see everything in a different light. You're able to watch the games in a different way than playing in them. So, which teams do you think are the true contenders this season?
Am I allowed to pick?
What's that?
How many am I allowed to pick, do you think?
I would say if you're thinking like true contenders for me, it would probably be Foci 4 or better. So probably 4, I would say.
Okay, I've got 3 that I can definitely pick out. So I'm gonna say ABO for sure. They've been absolutely dominant this entire season.
Yeah,
So I don't without a doubt, they're a contender down the road for sure. I also think
unless you're Curry, because Curry immediately flamed them and said they haven't played anyone. They're garbage.
I don't quite share that viewpoint with him because I mean, even if you're playing against garbage teams, I mean, look at Clemson. Like Clemson was the number 2 team in college football last season, and they beat up on the awful ACC. So, and they're still a good team too. So,
Right.
sometimes the good teams just have easy schedules.
Yeah. So ABO is one. Do we have two others?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm almost gonna put us in there. So I think we're off to a really good start too. In this, as far as the standings are concerned, both us and ABO have broken away pretty strongly,
Yeah, you
and
guys are
I
both
think we can.
playoff locks at this point, so you've really crushed it.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely playoff locks for us, our 2 teams there. But I think, yeah, we've also got that going forward. We've got a few kinks to iron out, but I think we definitely should be in the picture as well and in the running when it comes down to the end.
Yeah, I would 100% agree, especially if you guys start to feature Grumpy in like an isolation one-on-one role. He'll probably he'll probably handle the team. Love you, Grump. So you got you, who I expected. ABO, I also expected, and you said one
And
more
then,
guaranteed for sure.
yeah, I think another contender, I'm going to put Holden Gate up there. So Curry's team.
Yeah, yeah, they've been
I
on
think,
fire.
oh, yeah, that team, since they made the acquisition of FK and Easy, I think they're, what, 5-1?
Hmm.
Yeah, so they've just been crazy since that whole turnaround happened.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're the first team to beat you outside of overtime. You're the first
Yeah, they
non-OT
were.
loss, and
Yeah, it was a really close game on Jardum. I think we only lost by 11. Oh no, we lost by 9. We lost by 9, but
oh
still,
man,
like
he's undersold his
that game
team.
got away from us. Yeah.
Well, I feel like Jardum's just one of those maps where if it's over and you realize it's over and there's 5 minutes to go, like surely anything can happen, but sometimes you're just like, you know what, I'm not feeling it, and then the game can kind of blow up really quick.
Yeah, I think there were more than 5 minutes when we gave up on it. Yeah, but yeah, that's definitely how Jardum goes.
I think, yeah, the second you saw Curry flaming you guys, you were like, you know what, we don't even want to play Jardum. We're done. Like you can have
It's
it.
not worth it.
um, yeah. So do you have one more? So like the for me, the last team, like all those teams, I 100% agree with, and then the last team that I kind of put in that upper echelon is center of attention, and then there's a few sleeper picks after that. But do you view COA in that same league as the other three teams that you've mentioned, or would you say they're in the second tier for you?
Well, I know at the beginning of the season, I viewed that team as our like biggest rival going down because I think every captain thinks that their team is pretty darn good at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
beginning of the season.
of course.
So I viewed them as like our main rival going forward, and like they've kind of been under the radar for most of the season. Like not too many big things have been happening. I think they definitely still have potential, most of the potential that I saw at the beginning of the season as well. So I think we'll see what they've got going forward. So I can definitely see them making a push and being strong towards the end. But they have been kind of quiet, quieter than I thought they'd be.
Well, what's interesting about COA, and I feel like this happens every season, is they didn't start off red hot because they lost. If I'm not mistaken, I can pull up their schedule on my side here. So they swept 877, and then they got swept by a blockwork. And then, they swept Chennai. But I feel like after they were swept by a blockwork, everyone kind of wrote them off almost. Like, because there's only 7 weeks, and people are like, oh, they couldn't beat them. But it's a weird thing because Wayne wasn't there. But even in the power rankings, I think they dipped pretty, in BAM's power rankings, they dipped pretty hard that week, if I'm not mistaken. And they did lose to Holden Gate, but Holden Gate's been, Will Grigg at this point. So, and they were close games too, like 7-3, 6-5. And then they went and took care of business last week against Smoothie Ping. But I don't know. I find them to be a really interesting team, mainly because I've been keeping a closer eye on them because Bright said he hated Sharon. No, he didn't say that, but he made like kind of a crazy or bold claim, I should say, with which was backed by solid logic. I'm not trying to throw Bright under the bus, and I actually kind of agreed with him when he presented his logic, saying they should have like cut Shara, and if they don't, like they're not that they're not a true contender, but he thought it would hurt them in the playoffs, and I just don't see that to be the case.
Yeah, so I think the reason they probably dipped so much in like Bam's power rankings after that week two, that was before anyone had like ABO very high up
Yeah.
in the power rankings or even on a radar at all. Especially since what was it, their only loss, which I think was an overtime loss, came in the very first game of the season.
Yep.
So yeah, like at that point, losing to ABO kind of it wasn't like a quality loss or anything like that either. They weren't viewed as a strong opponent. Now, looking back at it, yeah, it's a strong opponent. So like their four big losses there are to the best team in the standings and then arguably the second hottest team as well behind that team. So I that's it. You bring up a good point that they haven't really lost to anyone that should raise any red flags. They've
Right.
lost to good teams and they've played close games against those teams
Yeah.
as well.
Very competitive. So in the same respect, I'll give you two here, and we won't stay too long on it, and probably won't go into as much depth as we just did. But you've been on quite a few, I would say, like sleeper teams that kind of surprised everyone, even last season with Despite Ball, me. They kind of came out of nowhere after like that rough start, and you guys just were the number one seed. I mean, and obviously you got bounced in the first round, which is a bummer, but I don't think anybody anticipated after the first 2 weeks that that was the position DSM was going to be in. So there's a long roundabout question of me saying like, who do you see as sleeper picks for the playoffs or making like a good run here towards the finals home stretch?
Well, I guess I would put probably two teams on
Mm-hmm.
there. So the first one, I'm going to say Hat's team is a huge question mark right now, but not
Yeah.
necessarily in a bad way.
Well, there was a lot of roster movement. We should probably address that because before, when I was interviewing everyone else, a lot of these moves had not happened, but Hat overturned 50% of the roster. So big question marks
Y-
there for sure.
Yeah, like and so CC's moving from defense to offense, which I think CC's great at both positions, so I've got nothing wrong with that. But like he completely overhauled his defense. He brought in two new defenders who've never played together, so I don't know how quickly or how long it'll take for them to start working together. But if they can work together well, they've got a great offense, and all they need is that defense to start clicking, and they're up there as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize. I think this, if I'm not mistaken, it will be Omar's majors debut, and it's always like to me, it's always kind of a gamble this late in the season when you bring up a player who doesn't have the experience. Just because some players really make that leap well, like Ballerina is a great example. She's done phenomenally, and other players, it takes them a few seasons to adapt to the major style, or they just never do, and they're just a high-ranking minors player. So it was a pretty bold gambit. I guess it's not a gambit if we're in week 5, but it's a it's a bold move by Hat to make that type of those types of changes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Omar played, I think 1 week in season 19. He subbed in, but he was not. I think this is his first time like truly being rostered onto a team.
Yeah, and also we should say on the other side, like they acquired Ego, which is a pretty good balance, I would say. You want a pretty experienced veteran player if you're going to have that gamble that you're taking as the other defender.
I agree. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting going forward what happens with them.
Yeah. So you said Butts and Holds, and who was the other?
I'm gonna put Rectiles on there.
Yeah, I just saw. So that's another big news that just kind of broke today. It looked like Doris came back. Um,
Yeah, it sounds like Doris is back.
Doris was a sleeper MVP pick for me. So getting an MVP caliber player, I mean, try to think of the Bucks without Giannis, and then in the middle of the season, he's like, you know what? I'm totally good to play. Like that's a big deal. So yeah, I liked Rectiles before as my sleeper pick, and I was kind of interested. I mean, I don't know the situation. I don't know why Doris left, why he's come back, but the Griff trade is pretty interesting. So now it's Griff and Doris over there, and then their offense. Oh, that's a good question. Do you know who their offense is off the top of your head?
I think it's Dragon Beast, and I think I want to say First is the other offender.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure you're right. I know it's definitely Dragon Beast because he's captaining. I couldn't think of the partner, but I think you're right. I think it's First, who's another semi first season guy. So yeah, it should be a good run for them. That's one of the teams that I personally would try to avoid if I were in your position. Like free
Right.
advice from a guy who never played majors. Just
That's another incredibly strong defense, which is never what you want to go up against.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, yeah, we got more questions. Let's keep going here. So there's certain ways that teams get described in other sports that can kind of identify them. I don't know if you have a phrase like an example. The Grizzlies through Memphis Grizzlies in basketball for the mid 2000s through about 2015 were called the Grit and Grind team. You know, the 80s Showtime Lakers, stuff like that. Is there a way that you would identify like how your team plays?
I think we're the okay then show.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Oh yeah. So I think so. I guess we'll start with the offense. So okay, on offense, Pulpo okay then up there. Pulpo handles most of the first grabs, and otherwise like, and if Pulpo's got a shot at getting out, okay, then it's great at blocking for him as well. Also great at finding handoffs, so that works out really well. And then just OD, obviously he's the OD master. You've got okay then there. He is incredible. I honestly feel like he plays better OD by himself than with another player there, but it's incredible to watch him. So and still does everything right on offense as well, but everything he does in base on offense is phenomenal and it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard just because the team in as a whole has been playing so well. Um, but definitely, I would say okay then is the star player. The interesting part of that is his cap numbers are a little lower. I think Polpo actually leads the team in caps, and
I believe he does, yeah.
okay then's kind of like middle of the pack, but like his hold numbers are insane. So when you factor that in with the OD, yeah, it makes sense. Like he should. It sounds like, in your opinion, he should be in the MVP conversation for sure.
I love a good holder.
You're a GG fan.
Big GG fan.
So name the player everybody is sleeping on for season 21. I feel like every year there's two or three. Do you have you been watching and you're like, oh, this player is actually doing very very well, but not getting any recognition?
Well, I've always been a big fan of Dragon Beast, and I feel like he never gets any recognition at all. So I guess I'll throw his name out there.
Sure. I think last season he did because he was putting up monster cap numbers, and I think that was kind of the breakout season in terms of people saying, "Oh, he's an elite defend or offensive player." Um, yeah, that's a good one. I'll take Dragon Beast. You also have Grumpy on your team. You should probably mention him. I feel
Oh,
like
I,
we
I
haven't.
definitely have got Grumpy on my team, of course.
Feel like we
Yeah, I
haven't talked about
still
him enough.
feel like yeah, I feel like people have been sleeping on him, still sleeping on him, are going to continue to sleep on him. But
Yeah,
he's a comfy mattress, so I guess it might just keep happening.
yeah, for sure. And so this is you're in an interesting position again. Like not many players. I think Warriors is doing it as well, but they do the coaching or general managing of the team, but they aren't able to play. I think the reason you're not playing this season, I'm assuming, is because you have higher ping and you know you're going to be at home.
Yeah, my internet's not great.
Yeah. And would you be interested in seeing? I've been asking like just kind of vague questions, like some sort of keeper addition. So a keeper for a team if they're going to be playing the next season, like trying to keep a team together in some way.
I think that's definitely something interesting to think about. But at the same time, I feel like part of the reason I like Tech Pro so much is that the teams are different every single season, and that there's like 3 seasons a year, so you've got so much rotation, and everything's always fresh, and you've always got it moving around. And I feel like I really like that. So I'm not sure how I'd feel about a keeper league if I'm being honest.
That's fair. That's why I asked the questions, buddy. I'm not looking for answers to support what I like. I would be way more interested personally in a keeper league just because I think dynasties are fun. And I also think it would be kind of interesting to see, like, oh, this team has won 2 or 3 in a row, or they're always at the top, and then they're having a down season, or somebody leaves from their team and now they're not good. Like I don't know, that type of stuff really interests me.
Yeah, see, I feel like I'm almost the exact opposite there. I hate dynasties. I hate them.
Well,
Like
let's talk about the sports teams you like. You're a Milwaukee
small
Bucks
market.
fan,
Yeah.
so they until recently they've never been good.
Yep. Oh,
You're
we had Kareem for a
in
few
the
seasons.
'60s.
I think it was the 70s, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
um, do you follow? I guess the Brewers.
I do follow the Brewers.
Yeah. Well, I think we're understanding why people are not a fan of dynasties right now.
I mean, I'm small market fan. I guess apart from the Packers, you could very easily argue that they're. I mean, they're technically small market, very easily the smallest market in the
NFL.
NFL.
Yeah.
I think metropolitan area is 300K. The next closest is Buffalo at like a million. But like everyone knows the Packers though, so I don't really slot them in as a small market team. But like that's just what I've grown up cheering for. So those are the kinds of teams that you'll have like 3 good seasons every 10 to 15 years. So
Yeah.
you gotta really embrace them. So that's what I'm used to. So I've grown to hate the dynasty teams because they're the ones that are always in the way.
Yeah. I can understand that mentality for sure, but like to me, it's a bigger moment when one of those teams loses. It's more fascinating, and it's also like it gives a bigger rub to the team that beat them. If the Bucks, for example, were to have last season beaten the Cavs and then gone on, like people would remember that for probably about 30 to 40 years, as opposed to every season.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's
Also,
just kind of my mentality. But
another fun fact: the Bucks have ended the 2 longest winning streaks in NBA history as well. So that's another one just to put up on the fact board.
that is interesting. Who? Just as a basketball fan,
So
I think.
the Golden State Warriors one from I
Oh,
don't remember what year that was.
like 2017, like when they won
Yeah, it
30
was
in a
like
row.
5-ish years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was when they started the season undefeated,
Mhm.
and then they also snapped the Lakers winning streak back in the '70s as well. I
Oh,
believe it
nice.
was.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, the two longest. That's crazy. That's an interesting tidbit because I know that Lakers record was up there for quite some time.
until Golden State broke it, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and then
and
they beat
I
Golden
don't think
State too.
anyone thought someone was going to break that record.
Yeah, that's wild. Um, so has anyone, speaking of fun moves and record setting things, actually I'm gonna switch gears. I'm gonna go to a different question instead. Were any trades offered to you or considered to Rank Thugs? Has anyone knocked on the door with at least an offer that you semi considered?
Yeah, so like obviously the captain who's made so many roster moves had
Hmm.
been talking to me mainly earlier in the season. I think I want to say it was after like 2 weeks, maybe. I think the offer of Griff for Grumpy was on the table.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, but I have, like we talked already, I'm a big fan of Grumpy, so I wasn't too keen to get rid of him, especially after I think we were 4-0 at that point too. So kind
Yeah,
of hard to change something that's working out in your
yeah. If
favor.
it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Exactly, and I again still a big proponent for him. Griff's a great player as well. Like
Hmm.
she won a super in season 19. She's playing really well this season. It's just again I trusted my draft, and I think my draft is still working well, and I'm really happy with Grumpy. So I didn't want to turn him loose like that.
Well, yeah. In comparison to Grumpy, I mean, I actually think Griff is pretty underrated, but I like Griff in comparison to Grumpy. I like her up to the G and the R, but then you got to go Grumpy because Grumpy's the man. I think I put Grumpy over about 20 times. He's gonna be like, dude, please stop. um,
They'll
you
know his
actually,
name after this one.
yeah, that's the point. Everybody should know his name. He's the Pandora of last season. Everybody was like, oh, Pandora.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, so you actually kind of mentioned this, so I'm gonna dive into it. This is one of the issues I have with like the redraft every season. I feel like if you have a really good draft, and I talked about this with Bright. Bright's a great example. He has a great draft every season. So on top of for him being literally the best player in Tag Pro, or one of the best players, if not the best, he then has a good draft. So his team looks pretty unbeatable right away, no matter what. Um, and I just I feel like in the draft, it's do you? I guess what I'm asking is, do you feel like after the draft you can pretty much tell how the season's going to go?
Well, I feel like everyone, in some respect, seems to think they understand how the season's going to go from the get go, and that's probably why we get 15 power rankings before it starts, and
Right.
two of them that keep going after the season because people are disappointed with how their picks went. But I think a lot of people, the draft definitely determines a lot about it, but you still have to execute, and there's enough change and enough randomness to an extent going on in Tag Pro that anything can happen, and then there's always going to be players that over and underperform too. So it's
Hmm.
hard to really write off a team or like scratch a team in at the beginning.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've still got times where it comes to be true. You've got plenty of times where it doesn't. So I think that's something to note.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And a bigger thing for me is like this is more again to like my keeper league idea that I like, and I think part of the reason I like it is in Tag Pro, there's just so much roster movement, especially around like the deadline, which we saw like just an absolute boatload happen over the past day, which is awesome. I love that. But like, there's no long term implications to those moves. So I think it would be more fun to see that type of thing, or if you could get a steal by getting a young player that becomes better on your team, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I
But
think that's definitely interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
and at that point, I almost feel like it'd be cool if there was uh like affiliation at that point too, so you could almost have a minor league going. But then that can get clogged up. So I can see how that's not the greatest thing either because development doesn't exist as like in Tag Pro the
yeah,
same way it does in baseball for farm systems like that.
yep. I think that's yeah, that's kind of a part of the interesting issue is that's kind of changed, and I've talked about this with a few others. But when I was coming up, I had Meep, I had Mike Dino, I had Meep and Raspberry, the same person. I had Epiphany, and then I started playing like the late night tourneys, and everybody was teaching me a ton. That stuff doesn't really exist anymore. It's more like, oh, now you can, especially with TPM coming in, there's nobody like teaching you how to get better. And there's no system like even my A teamers, which were like Fender, Mike Dino, Carp was actually on my B team, but like those guys taught me a ton about how to play the game and what I should be doing and why, and not in a mean way. It was just like, this is why. So the logic was like, oh, okay. And I wanted to learn. But I feel like that's been kind of lost over the past few seasons. And by few, I mean like basically five or six. I just don't see that type of teaching going on. Even when I was my last year when I was in A team, I don't think like I made an effort to teach the B teamers enough, in my opinion. Like I tried a little, but not overwhelmingly, you know?
Yeah, no, that's definitely something. Like I came late to the party for the whole Tag Pro thing. I think my first season was season 14,
Hmm.
so I was never in a position where I really had too much of a mentorship opportunity either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the advice that I've given to players who some like a lot of players feel like they're almost like trapped in certain leagues or like stuck in a spot where they think that they can prove themselves or they have proven themselves, so they think that they should be up a league potentially.
Hmm.
Whenever I see something like that, I feel like I always tell them just like find find a captain or someone who is going to be a captain of the league that is in the one that you want to be in.
Yeah.
And honestly, just suck up to them for a little bit. Just like get to talking to them, get to playing with them, and you can be their sleeper pick. Like
Yep.
everyone's got sleeper picks, and if you can like get to talking to the right people, you can get in that spot, and then that's how you learn a ton as well.
Yeah.
It's being that zero TC player taking the second to last spot in the draft, and then suddenly you play really well and you learn a lot, and then you're in the rotation for the next season as well. I think that's the way to do it, at least in the modern Tag Pro.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to say shout out to Fender for and Mike Dino, everybody who was a part of that Land Before Timers franchise, because during that era I was talking about, they did a great job with player development. They had a consistently dominant B team, or not dominant, but like a team that was competitive. They went on like a pretty good streak of winning, and it wasn't. how it's when I see it now, I'm like, well, those are like, I hate the term, but like veteran B team players. You know what I mean? Like they've been around in B team for a while, so they're just naturally going to be better than other B teamers.
You're circly jerks.
I'm not trying to call it anybody. I think Sir Clay Jerk could play majors if you ask me.
I love circly.
But like, yeah, those guys who you constantly see on the B team, they weren't really doing that. They had maybe one of those guys as like a veteran presence. Tritoon is a great example. Like he always ends up playing B team, but he's clearly an A tamer. But he actually made the B teamers better, you know. Um, and I also think like I noticed like now I'm just riffing, but when the majors captains were in charge of the minors teams, I felt like they were scouting NLTPB a little more. I feel like that doesn't really happen as much anymore because they were trying to get like an advantage for their team for the next season because they most of those guys would end up captaining again. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. I've been ranting on it for like ever now. Um, so, what's been the biggest surprise to you of season 21?
I think so. Apart from ABO, which I feel is a little bit of a cop out
Mhm.
because I don't think very many people predicted them to be doing as well as they are.
I
I'm
did.
gonna
I
say,
didn't release my preseason number ones, but I'll tell you right now, like my rankings, they are exactly correct, and nobody can prove otherwise.
okay. I was gonna say that is that so. All right. I think right now the biggest surprise to me. So between like the third place team in the standings and the eighth place team in the standings, they're all separated by 1 point right now,
Yep.
which doesn't make the playoff race as exciting since obviously I'm pretty sure it's just 8 teams that get in this season.
Hmm.
But there's just a lot going on right there and a lot of shuffling. So I think it's really interesting how you've got like ABO who's really risen to the top, but then you've got a ton of other players or a ton of other teams that are all in the mix right now that can all be lethal going down the stretch as well.
Yeah, and even the teams not in the playoffs, if they catch fire and sweep out, they're gonna knock somebody else who's currently just because like none of those spots 3 through 8 are secured 100%. If those teams go on a losing streak, they're out most likely because of how the schedule plays out. One of them will end up slipping out of the playoffs. Um, so yeah, like it's been a much more interesting season in terms of parity than we've seen recently in the past few seasons. Yeah, you're right, Jam. Cool, thanks, Lionel.
I'm thinking, no, I'm just absorbing the standings. I think Smoothie Pink can make a push. I know Sevens was dealing with some lag, so they had to sadly
Yeah,
drop him.
he's
But
out. Flies in.
yeah, flies in. So I don't know. I was watching them scrim last night. They played really well in like the one scrim that I watched.
Yeah,
So maybe that continues.
I really like the Smoothie Pings team. I've been announcing most of their games with AK, having a really good time doing it. The defense has been the biggest question mark, and it's just and both of them being sevens and Pandora pronouns, both of them being very very good, but like the mix sometimes it just doesn't work, you know, and that was kind of the case that I was seeing. Like it just wasn't working, and I think making that change, even though it's late, it had to be done if they were going to try to make a push. And it's going to be interesting to see if Panda and Fly work a little better together. But I'm rooting for Panda. He's like one of my favorite players. I think he's wildly undercelebrated as well. I should probably start putting him over as the same fashion that I put over Grumpy because Panda's really effing good at Tag Pro, and I don't think a lot of people realize
I don't even think Panda realizes that either.
that. I'm gonna quote Panda. Wrong. That's a Panda. That's my favorite Panda quote. I no, I don't. He's very humble. He reminds me in a very bizarre way of Curry. He doesn't go around flaming everybody nonstop, saying everyone sucks, but he's always like, no, no, I'm not that great. And you know, like if you talk to him, he's like, I'll be lucky if I even get drafted majors. And I'm like, dude, you're one of the, in my opinion, probably top five, if not top seven majors defenders. Like there's no,
Right.
and if people don't realize that, you know, that's kind of on them. Especially you saw it last season when he paired with Wayne, like the right combination. Panda's lethal. So does everything right. So you're an executive. who do you think should be in the running for executive of the season? Like people in your position. Usually in for anyone who's not clear what I mean by that, NBA, NFL, stuff like that. That's basically the general manager, the one who takes care of the roster. So
So yeah, I feel like normally that award just ends up going to the team that finishes first in the standings. But as
mhm.
of right now, I would probably, if the season ended now, I'd give it to Curry just for what he was able to do, just turning that around after two poor showing,
Yeah,
just immediately just flipping half the team around and then suddenly being good. I think that's a
yeah.
pretty darn good executive move by him.
And he's definitely, in my opinion, in the conversation, and especially because it's the second season in a row he's done it. But like because it's the second in the season in the row where he's made like a move that drastically changed his team, I'm like, wait a minute, are you an executive of the season? You don't know how to draft. uh,
That's a good point too.
but
That's a
I
good
mean, he
point too.
does know when it's not working, and I talked about this with Curry. It's not necessarily like this person's bad or they're terrible. It's just it's not working for the team, and the season's so short. We have to make a move. So unfortunately, sometimes people end up getting the short end of the stick on that. But yeah,
Yep.
I like you. I like Curry for that role. I guess Mex obviously because he drafted the super team, and honestly like Warriors too because I feel like any of you guys were to win that, I don't know if that's an award in Tech Pro. Is that
No, there's a captain of the year kind of thing, but again, that normally just goes to the top team
top
anyway.
team? Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Maybe I'll do like an awards podcast where I kind of voice the opinions to give a little more insight into voting instead of just looking at record and top numbers type thing. Um, So we're getting close. We're pretty close, ready to wrap. Unless you have anything else, I do have one last question for you, but I'm going to ask you if you want anything else to discuss while we're here.
No, I think we covered quite a lot, quite a wide range of topics. I'd
Yeah, for sure. It's because we're awesome. So I want you, if you would be so willing, if you could get your wrestling mask on, your luchador mask, and cut a promo on a Blockwork Orange for this Sunday's match.
Oh dear, I don't even. I'm like 12 years old. I don't even know what half those words meant.
um. So do you know like Hulk Hogan when he would just call out a bad guy?
Um,
Something like that.
Not really.
Oh, jeez. All right, I'm just gonna do it for you then. It's gonna make it easy. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, this is Messi talking, guys. Ooh, you think you're tough, Max? Oh, I draft good teams. I'm Max. You're trash. Your whole family is trash. And by your family, I don't mean your mom and dad because that's very rude. I actually mean your team. You're garbage, and we're going to beat the crap out of you on Sunday. You might as well not show up. Something like that.
Yeah, that sounded exactly like me.
Yeah, yeah. Also, ooh, I went on a Zoom call and I forgot I was still on, and then I started looking at adult materials, and it got real awkward for all my classmates.
Doesn't sound like me anymore.
I think that was you.
Oh no! All right, I'm gonna have to talk to that version of myself. Make sure that doesn't happen.
All right, man. I'm gonna play us off. Thank you so much for being on. You were a great sport, and I thought we had like a lot of good stuff that went on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This
Yeah.
is a lot of fun.
Oh, cool, man. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, we'll get you back. We're gonna try to do like a big group one for the playoffs. So I'll be in touch.
Cool. Thank you.